We have a great guest on this morning, Eric Draper. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
We were just talking about your first day on the job, and you have a funny story for us.
That's right. So this is back 2001, January 20th. This is the inauguration day.
Yeah.
So, and there's a moment after the swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol where the outgoing president says goodbye to the incoming president. So Clinton is saying goodbye to President Bush. And on this day, the weather was so bad that Clinton couldn't fly, because normally there's a helicopter waiting that takes the former president around and to Andrews Air Force Base. Well, this is kind of on-the-job training for me, and I'm transitioning from a press photographer to a White House photographer. Well, at that moment, I started to follow the Clinton staff to their motorcade, and then I ended up actually sitting in a van in the Clinton motorcade. And I'm thinking to myself at the time, like, something feels very wrong. And I never forget, there's a voice behind me, and it was the voice of a Clinton photographer, Ralph Allswing, and he said with a really dry tone, "Eric, your guy is staying." And I look up and I see the President and Mrs. Bush walking up the steps of the Capitol.
No.
Luckily, the door didn't close to the van, or else it would have been, you know, awful. But I jumped out of the van and caught up with the entourage, and like no one ever noticed, you know, like,
nice.
like nothing ever happened.
No problem.
Yeah, yeah.
No problem.
No one ever knew.
We're visiting with Eric Draper. Eric, for all 8 years, both terms of the Bush presidency, he was the chief photographer, had ultimate access to the President of the United States and meetings with world leaders. We want to show some more photos here of you at work. And let's take a look at some of these, and if you can describe these. All from your book, Front Row Seat. Now, this is you and the president going over some shots, huh?
That's right. I created a photo book for the president, and he was really interested in pictures, and I called it the Photos of the Week book. And the president always looked forward to a new book to look through photos, but primarily he wanted to look through pictures to actually send photos to people. That was one of his favorite things to do. So in my job, I would capture a handshake, a grip and grin, or a moment that the president had with someone. And the president would love to do a personal message on a photo and send it to that person. So that was very, you know, enjoyable for me, because it just made people happy.
Right.
That's wonderful.
So tell us a little bit about your typical day on the job. It's not a typical 8 to 5 job.
No. The president was an early riser. Like, he would literally, like clockwork, he would show up in the Oval Office at 7 o'clock in the morning, and typically I would get there early just to, you know, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I would have his schedule, and the president's schedule is detailed. It's like it's down to the minute.
Yeah.
So I would know exactly what would happen that day. But then just waiting for the surprise moments, to me, that was always the best part of my job, was capturing, and for a photographer with my style, I had a documentary style of storytelling, just following the president through the day and telling the story of that day, or telling the story of that moment in history, was really fascinating for me.
Let's take a look at another couple of photos from you on the job here. Look at you.
Being very sneaky.
Hiding behind the couch.
Yeah, and you know, I almost felt like a professional stalker. And
that looks like a stalker.
I mean, I always had my eyes glued to the president, and he didn't necessarily see me all the time. Like, I would always kind of try to stay off of his radar, but always be close. But it was to the point where I can literally walk into the room, and I would know his moods. I would know from his expression, from his tone of voice, if I should be there or not.
Yeah.
It was really kind of, we had a lot of nonverbal communication, because I really didn't want him to engage with me, because that meant that my photos wouldn't be real. I wouldn't really capture real moments. And plus, I didn't want to be a distraction. That was the biggest part of the job, was not to be a distraction, to be that fly on the wall, or I always like to call it a piece of furniture in the room, because everyone expected me to be there.
Right.
One more shot here with Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia. And that's a brief moment, obviously.
Looks like an
and
elevator.
you're in the mirror there. It's an elevator shot, isn't it?
Right. This is back in 2001, President Putin's very first visit to the White House. And the president is taking him up to the residence. And so we're in this really tiny elevator, and Of course, I followed, and I'm pretty close in that picture, actually, just just like a few inches away there.
You're like, hi.
Yeah.
The book is called Front Row Seat. It's a coffee table book. It's you can see it on our table here. It's just loaded with history, photos, moments that you captured during your 8 years, and what a tremendous book. Congrats on the success of the book.
Thank you.
And thanks for being on the Morning Brew with us. And come by the next time you're around, and we'll talk some more.
Great. Thank you for inviting me.
Really enjoyed
for
it.
being here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Such a great book.
Thank you.
Eric Draper, again, the book is called Front Row Seat.